But basically what I wanted to offer the folks here tonight is something that you're probably not gonna see or hear anywhere else that I know of. And that is looking at relationships in terms of thought process, or in terms of communication styles, or what we might also call learning style. So thinking style, learning style, communication style. I'm going to use those interchangeably. Are they the same exact things? No. There's going to be variations. But I think the fundamental approach to learning and relating to your environment is going to have a profound effect on how you relate to other people as well. And while the world is, what, 80% non-ADD, give or take, and 10 to 20% some kind of, let's call it, right brain learning style. So if we open up our page, just go back to the original book, part 1, and let's just look at page 23. So what I'll be referring to quite a bit are the two basic learning styles. And we're going to call them auditory, or left hemisphere, and visual right hemisphere. So with variations, you know, on a spectrum from very, very left to middle to very, very far right, we're all going to be somewhere along that spectrum. Does that make sense? So it's not like flipping a coin, heads or tails. You're either left brain or you're right brain. I mean, unless you were born with half a brain. Now, in any given moment, you may be thinking very, very predominantly with either your left brain or your right brain, or you would say more in an auditory or a visual process. Does that make sense? So in the moment, we can be very, very far one way or the other, but as a being, we're a combination of both. We're all a mix of left and right brain. And to the extent that we respond and react to certain situations and process that our senses, you know, what we see and hear and feel, leaves us leaning one way or the other. We all there? All right. All right. So what happens, there's probably a couple of immediate questions or things that at least come to my mind. And what happens when you have a relationship with a very right brain and another very right brain? Or, well, let's look at it this way. Let's do this. Let's go right plus right. Right plus left.
Right plus right, is it wrong?
Left plus left and left plus right. Does that make sense? So those would be the four combinations, and right and left and right are the same. So we've really got two rights, two lefts, or one of each. My experience is it doesn't really matter which person it is, whether it's the male or the female who's the right brain or the left brain, or whether it's two males and one's right and one. It doesn't really matter. I see personally, I see those differences being very minimal, and those perspectives have already been done to death anyway. So I'm not going to retread all that ground of, you know, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, or all that whole thing. So what we've got is typically we're looking at a very visual, very boom, 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 stressed out, kind of sympathetic dominant, very active person who has a very specific communication style and a very specific way of taking in information and reacting to that information. Now, what if we have two of those people in a relationship? Well, there's certain advantages and certain disadvantages. In one respect, they're going to have very similar perspectives on a lot of things. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean they're going to agree on everything, but their way of looking at things, the way they perceive things, is going to be fairly similar. Does that make sense? So that can be a real plus in the relationship. The problem is they may tend to drive each other crazy, which is why it may be tough for this group, these two people, to really kind of, whoa. It may be tough for these two guys to like really develop an intimate relationship because there's really nothing the other person has that they want. Does that make sense? It's like there's nothing hidden. The blind spots of this person are probably the same blind spots on this person. There's no complementing there. So, I don't know, my experience is, however limited, is that with this respect, is that the two right-brainers or two visuals, I think they're going to get along really well, basically. They're going to understand each other. Are they going to develop that kind of a synergy, if you will, where two people who have very different ways of thinking, when they put their heads together, kind of two heads are better than one, they come up with different things. Does that make sense? That's probably going to be lacking because of the similarities in the way they think. Same thing with two left-brainers. Now this is going to be, these guys are going to be very calm. It's like two accountants, you know, it's like going to a Christmas party with all accountants, right? Yeah, wake me up when it's over. I'm just kidding. I don't mean to slam on accountants. I love my accountant. But they have a very different way of being in the world. These guys, again, they're gonna be very orderly, very neat, very, their house is gonna be immaculate probably. They're gonna really respect each other without having to work too hard. Does that make sense? But again, the relationship is gonna be kind of one-dimensional. Is that enough to keep two people moving forward? I don't know. I like I said, I think the potential there is to be good business partners, if you will. But again, as far as creating something dynamic, I don't know that you're going to get that from two people who think a lot alike. Does that make sense? So, really what I'm here about, what I'm going to talk about tonight, is the combination of the right brain and left brain, the auditory and the visual, the sympathetic dominant and the parasympathetic dominant, which you could say exemplifies or exacerbates that kind of male-female kind of dynamic. You're talking about two people that have very different personalities, probably very different skill sets, very different strengths and weaknesses, kind of like we see with the basic learning styles. One person is going to tend to be orderly and fairly, keeping their ducks in a row. The other person may tend to be kind of flighty, off the wall, but very creative. Now the funny thing is, it really takes both. See, that's why I don't see these two getting too far, because there's a lot missing in this relationship. There's a lot missing in this relationship. But this relationship has a real, it has a lot going for it. It has the dynamic, the creativity, the outside the box thinking of the right brain, the visual person, but it also has, if you can collaborate and respect each other, it has that order and sequence and follow through that your classic left brainer will have. Does that make sense? So like at one point, you know, Thomas Edison had something like 50 guys working for him just to keep up with all the ideas that he was churning. I mean, he never could have finished those inventions if he had to do it all himself. So he partnered up with fairly conventional, I'd say, left brain engineer types that would take the idea and run with it and follow through with it. I've noticed in my relationships with Lisa, my wife, and also with like partnerships, like business relationships, when I can partner with people who don't think like I do, we tend to create something that's beyond what either one of us would have come up with ourselves. Does that make sense? So my kind of general observation is people tend to marry or get into relationships with their opposite. It's, you know, and I say that in a very specific sense, in this learning style, communication style sense. Not opposite in terms of values. I think it's, you know, in a relationship, you really do have to have similar values. You know, I can't imagine living with a, you know, I don't know, conservative Republican, you know, for more than 5 minutes, okay? It would drive me crazy. It would probably also drive me crazy to live with a Democrat, so it doesn't really matter. But it would, what was I getting at? So yes, so
People are attracted to their opposite.
we're attracted to our opposite because they bring something to the party that we don't have or can't see in ourselves. And that's awesome. So you start off in this relationship where this person is like able to see the world differently, and they bring something kind of like they're completing a puzzle, they're completing a picture. And that's awesome. That feels comforting. It feels, you know, it's like, you know, I don't want to get like in the what is that movie, you know, where, you know, You Complete Me or whatever it was, you know, Jerry Maguire or something like that. But without getting that mushy, it's kind of true, I think, that by connecting, making a connection with a person who has a very different learning style or communication style, a different perspective on the world, you get to see the world in a different way. You get to experience things through that person in another way. Now, this is all really cool and great and wonderful as long as the two parties have respect for each other, which is easy to do when things are going good. The trouble often comes into a relationship when things get tough, because when we get stressed out, when we get in a situation that's kind of like feeling like survival, like my survival is at stake, I'm being threatened, we tend to go with our strengths. Does that make sense? We tend to go with what we know. And what we know is, for right-brainers, it's the you know, it's the outside the box thinking. It's boom, boom, boom. You know, make something happen. See, visually, boom, go with it. Boom, boom, boom. With the left brainers, it's going to be to step back and whoa, whoa. You know, let's look at this. Explain it to me. Break it down into pieces. You know, boom, boom, boom. But they're when like I said, when we get under stress, we tend to not have quite as much respect for ideas and thoughts that are not ours. Does that make sense? So that's why I think what we see in marriages, a lot of marriages, are these people that really were like in love and attracted to each other, and when they were single and no kids and no mortgage and you know none of these burdens, and they're like awesome, and they're like, wow, this person is just amazing. They see the sunrise differently than I do. You know, they appreciate puppies and whatever, you know, whatever else. And they're like totally enamored with each other. But then, you know, the newness of the relationship is kind of, you know, fading away. They're kind of falling into patterns. So they're falling into very distinct communication patterns, behavior patterns, and then they get under stress. They get, you know, the mortgage is behind by a month, and there's 2 kids, and there's 2 jobs, and there's not enough time and not enough money, and now we want to change something. We want to fix something. We're not quite happy with the way things are, and we're starting to get a little stressed out because, you know, we have this idea, like Heidegger said, we have this idea of the possibility that we are, and we want to fulfill that possibility. But we're looking at our circumstances and we're projecting down the road, and we're seeing this other not so great future. And you could word it a couple of different ways, but I think the easiest way is to say, you know, we're feeling like we don't deserve that. You know, we really deserve this possibility. This is what we're capable of. This is what's possible for me as a person, as a being, and a future, and a family, and all the other blah, blah, blah trimmings. So this gap here starts to create tension and frustration, and like I said, that's when we want to go to our strengths. We're going to go to what it is we know. As a visual, I know visual. I know you get an idea outside the box, you know, what do I do to pay? Well, I'll go to Vegas or something, you know, whatever. Something bizarre, you know? Whereas my wife would probably come up with, well, let's sell, you know, all the junk in the basement, you know, because we haven't seen it in 10 years anyway, so let's just get rid of it. Then we can rent out the basement or you know, that's the like kind of a real straightforward idea that you would come up with. But see, that doesn't make sense to me, and my idea doesn't make sense to her. And when we're stressed out, there's a great Heidegger quote on acknowledgement and respect, and I wish I could remember it, or find it. But it really gets tough to appreciate and acknowledge and respect ideas that aren't our own when we're stressed. Does that make sense? Awesome. So that's if you were going to do counseling with folks who have, you know, you're going to meet with a husband and a wife that are, like I said, they're in that space where they're down the road, they got a couple of kids, they've been under stress, you listen to them speak, and instead of having an appreciation for each other's perspectives, you know, it's basically, well, that's just stupid, you know, and I see it this way, and she's wrong. and she says, well, I see it this way in their room. And can I say it? Can I say the one? Can I say it? When you and Dave came over one time, this was really funny. This was real to me. It was funny. Well, it certainly wasn't funny to them at the same time. But I actually had them in a conversation where they agreed. They agreed. Yet they were still fighting. They were still arguing the point, even after they agreed on it. And because they couldn't hear each other. They couldn't hear the agreement. They literally couldn't hear that they had actually just agreed on something. That difference of that way of expressing yourself can actually compound the problem. So the first problem is having a totally different perspective. So the right brainer is, here's the relationship. The left brainer is inside the box, and the right brainer is outside the box. That's it right there.
Well, the part I don't think it's fair is the right brain can be so creative. They can figure out how to function in the left brain box to make the left brain person happy. But the left brain person can't even comprehend how to do stuff to make
Really? The right brain person can do that?
Yeah.
Really? What does your desk look like?
It's a mess.
And how long have you and I been working on getting your desk unmessy?
I don't know.
How many times have you actually gotten it unmessy? You've cleared off your entire desk, and then how long did it take till it was just like piled up again?
I'll tell you what.
Let me ask you this: how many desks do you actually have right now? Are you down to one, or do you still have?
I have 4.
She has 4.
One is really clean. And,
This is you guys got to understand. We know each other. This is okay. This is okay. Well,
and the other 3 aren't. But I got one that's really nice.
you got one that's clean. 1 out of 4. All right, I love it.
The one she doesn't work at.
See, she's like the Thomas Edison of real estate. It takes 4 desks just to keep up with the ideas that she's churning out. Does that make sense? That's awesome. That's like freaky. That's like, we're in the worst real estate market in like 50 years. And most realtors are like, they're like have one folder, right? That they open and close a couple of times a week or something, And she's got 4 desks, 3 of which are like piled up with folders and projects and everything. That's like awesome. But I maintain that you couldn't be a left brainer if your life depended upon it.
Well,
With all due respect.
Well, we're talking about relationships.
Yes.
I know, I've been married for 39 years. 39? Since 1982?
Mm-hmm.
39? That's a long time.
Yeah.
No, 29. So, yeah. So, we've had a lot of conversations of what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And I can do the little check, I can do this for you. But after
Yes.
a while, I get mad because he's not doing this for me.
Right. Okay. Let me. That's something different, but I want to get to that. That's
Okay.
a really good point. But my point was, at least in this context,
Yeah.
is that we cannot think like a left brainer. We can't do it. I don't even know what it would be like to think that orderly and that just step by step precise. I can't imitate that. Does that make sense? And we've had this conversation about the way you even express yourself. Like if you could take that big picture and give the little snapshot, the core to Dave or Val, give that to them. Well, not Val's a little different, but if you could break that down and say, okay, here's what I'm looking at, and then build. So see, here's your view of the world, right? Of this project. You have a project or an idea, okay? And you see this whole thing at the same time. And what I have seen, the difficulty I've seen between you and Dave, is that you try to give him this whole idea, and he can't handle it. What he needs is this little piece right here. Step one. And then he needs this piece, and this piece, and this piece. And you build it, and then gradually he'll, oh, okay, see? But here's the problem. See, you get this whole idea, and so you have in your brain, this is Kathy. Let's use red for Kathy. So Kathy has 100% of the picture, right? This is this is 100%.
By the
Okay.
time he gets to step 4, she's on a bigger,
And the red-
better idea.
Yeah, you got it. So Kathy is like at 100% of the idea, and then gradually loses interest until okay, whatever it was. I've moved. She's moved on because there's another project waiting in the wing that's ready to go like this. See, when her enthusiasm gets down here, she's abandoning it and going on to another project. The trouble is, here's Dave. If she's able to explain it in a way that he can even get it, okay, his enthusiasm starts down here at about 5%. And gradually he's like, I'm not getting it. Oh, okay, it's starting to click by step 4 or 6. You know, he's starting to get it. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's cool. And now Dave's on board. But trouble is, by the time Dave's on board, Kathy, the train's gone. It's, you know, the ship has sailed.
Yeah, and then he says you don't finish anything. And I go, well, if you would have started when I started, we would have.
Yes. Hence my expression, my wife and I agree on everything, but never at the same time. My ex-wife, sorry. My wife and I are fine. We're cool. We just, as long as I remember that she's right, I'm good. And if she's ever wrong, she's still right. You know, I decided I could, in my marriage, even in life, I can either be right or I can be happy. Okay? And I would rather be happy and well-fed and well taken care of. I've given up being right. I don't mind being wrong anymore. I can be corrected. I can be, thank you. Yes, I think you're right. I think that would be a better way to do it. Yes. Just kidding. Half kidding.
So, well, it's not like that all the time, but enough to cause a problem.
Yeah. So again, this is really, it's about our relationship, the way we experience life, the way we experience the world. Visuals, high visuals, start out, man, we're intense. We see the whole picture. We see it all at once. Just the way the kid in school gets the idea for an essay. He gets it all at once. And without a viable mechanism, a strategy to get his ideas down on paper, like with a quick outline, you know? So he does that outline in like 5 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. He gets the essay down, right? Of course, he's been doing his exercises, so he can also learn to hold that picture for more than 5 seconds, right? So he sees the story in his head. He's got it all there at once. Boom, 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 boom. He puts down the keywords, gets it on paper. Now he can relax and make the sentences and write his rough draft. So if the visuals can do that, get your ideas down and break it down into pieces so that the non-visual, the more auditory, can take that and go, oh, okay, I get it. And of course, the faster we do that, if we can do that faster, then, you know, maybe they can get up to, you know, here before we get too discouraged, move on. So that one's about timing. That one's about timing. Most visuals have no sense of time. We can't tell time. We have no idea. And I accept that. I love Kathy, and I know she's, I mean, you made this one though.
Yeah,
You did, with 22 seconds to spare. You got here on time. So, but I accept that, you know. On our house, we live on Lisa time, okay? And it's going to be about 5 to 15 minutes late for just about anything we're going to go to. Doesn't matter. Our own wedding, we were 25 minutes late to our own wedding. Okay? Everybody sat around waiting. We were 25 minutes late. So that's just the way it is in our household. And the funny thing is, we used to be able to blame it on the kids, but you know, with the yours, mine, and ours, and X's and everything, we've had days, weeks where it's just the two of us, and we were still late. Or it was us plus Emily, and we were still late. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have no sense of time. She has no sense of time. So we get there with good intentions when we get there. So we have our way of experiencing the world. We have our different ways of expressing how we experience the world. And what was the other one you mentioned? You brought up something. I said we're going to talk about that one.
About the being able to meet one person's needs and another person not.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That has nothing to do with right or left brain. That's just being a jerk. Sorry. It's got nothing to do. Any person, right brain or left brain, if you are willing to acknowledge the other person, right? And you feel like you have an emotional investment or attachment to the other person, okay? You're able to give something without getting anything in return. That's got nothing to do with learning style. It's got nothing to do with communication style. That is just a way of being in the relationship that anybody can do. That has nothing to do with your perception or your communication style, or it doesn't. What it has to do with is, can you be present to the relationship when there's nothing happening? Does that make sense? Does the relationship exist for you when there's nothing happening? Now, some people, for whatever reason, they need constant feedback. Feedback junkies, right? They have to have someone telling them how wonderful they are. They have to be getting presents. They have to be buying something. Something has to be happening for them to feel okay. Okay? So when there's a pause in the relationship, somebody goes to the bathroom or goes on a trip or goes to school, right? Or goes to work, they're like, it's like they're not comfortable with the relation. There's nothing happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like little kids. Like when you like if I close the door on her and you're in the next room, not okay. Not okay. She needs to see you. She needs to know every moment that you're there. And if you're not there, it's just not okay. So some people, for whatever reason, and we're not going to go into that because it's not specifically about the learning styles, but I think it's got to do more with unfulfilled childhood development stuff that they were supposed to go through this stage probably around, gosh, what age would that be? I don't know, probably somewhere between 7 and 14, where the relationship persists. It has persistence. It has existence. Even if nothing's happening out there, it still exists in here. Okay? Maybe this is why more men cheat on their marriages than women. If that's, I don't know, is that statistic true or is it just a myth? I don't know. I would think, I think that the relationship tends to persist
The men just get caught.
for women eat better than it does. Yeah, okay. That's what I said. I'm not presuming that
I think
that
that'd be with
statistic is
anybody
true.
that has that person. A woman may want more attention,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so maybe that's why they cheat and vice versa.
Yeah.
I think it could go either way. I call it high maintenance relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So-
so you mean it's like having a let's see. So when you're growing up, you end up having a friend say like they're gone for a while and they come back and you're still your friend. At a certain stage, if they're gone, they're gone.
Mhm.
And it's like knowing that you're still friends even though you don't see each other. I mean, learning how to have
Exactly. It's like just because Lisa's somewhere picking up Alex or something, we're still married. I'm still in the relationship. I'm present to the relationship. Does that make sense? So that presence, that continuity in your mind buys you some benefits. And one of the benefits is that every moment about the relationship or every interaction with the relationship is not like a business transaction where I give you a book, you give me $20, right? I give you Play-Doh, you give me $3. Everything is a transaction.
I do your laundry, you fix my cars.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Mary.
So that gets that would get pretty cumbersome in a relationship. And when you feel that the relationship as a whole is balanced, you feel like you're being taken care of for the most part, okay? I don't mean in some needy, sick sense. I just mean you feel that the needs and the what you're bringing to the party and what you're getting out of it are basically balanced. You know, you don't need to like keep track and have every little thing accounted for. I do something for you, you do something for me. So that's a good, healthy place. What's not so, I don't think so healthy, and I think it can be a problem, is you can't do anything without getting something in return. It's like, unless there's an immediate payback, you're not interested. Does that make sense? So, and if there's not a payback that's directly related to, so the payback has to be either immediate or quid pro quo. There has to be a direct relationship. So to say, I know these 5 things about you, okay? And when we go out to dinner or someplace, whatever, we go sit down to watch TV, I know you like these 5 things. So I'm going to do these 5 things for you, even though I could care less about them, to be honest. I mean, it doesn't appeal to me. It's not related to my needs or my wants. So what I'm going to give you, okay, what I'm going to give you is what you want. See, I'm going to have an appreciation for the way you experience the world. Does that make sense? I used to think it was really cool to surprise Lisa. Okay? If I had something really cool to tell her, I would wait until I got home and then I would tell her in person. If I had a gift for her, I would, give it to her and let her open it up right in front of me and let her see her surprise and all that, right? Okay? What I found out is that, because that's the way I would want it. I don't want to know about a gift before I'm getting it, right? Like, put another way, I don't want to know about, like, maybe having sex tonight, and then I have to wait around for 3 hours to see if it's actually going to happen, okay? And with kids, 6 kids, that's the toss-up, okay? So that would be, like, annoying for me, to have to like wait around to get this gift. Okay, and you're gonna give me a gift. I know I'm getting a gift, but I don't know what it is, right? So that's like doesn't fit my personality. So for the first year or two of our marriage, I used to surprise her a lot. Okay, and I also used to probably, you know, initiate sex or a you know, a romantic evening as a surprise, as a like, ooh, let's, you know, we got 10 minutes here, let's, you know, let's do something, you know, whatever, the kids, you know, the kids are outside, you know, whatever. And what I found out was that was me. I was talking to myself, right? I was having a conversation in the mirror with Jerry's, you know, Jerry's learning style, Jerry's communication style, you know? It's kind of like, you know, mental masturbation, right? I was talking to myself. Once I said, wait a minute, no, she really likes to know. She likes the preparation and the anticipation. You know, let her simmer for a couple of hours and then jump on her, right? So I learned to communicate in her language. You see that? Now the choice to to have that understanding and perception is first to see the world from her point of view. I had to stand in Lisa's shoes and be that. Oh wow! So she gets cooking with, you know, about 2 hours to simmer. Wow. Okay. Whereas, you know, she just has to say yes, and I'm cooking. Okay. You know, that's about all the preparation work I need. Does that make sense? All right. So very different styles. Very different styles, but to have that genuine appreciation for the other person. And this is what you can listen for in relationships. You hear somebody talk, you hear a husband and wife talking, and you hear him say something, and you hear her say something, and they're not connected at all. They're not hearing each other. What they want is, you know, assuming it's fairly reasonable and, you know, it doesn't involve, you know, farm animals or something, right? You know, it's fairly reasonable, but they're just not hearing the other person. So that's a lack of appreciation and respect for the other person's perspective.
Well, see, I really thought it was a brain thing, because when I try to explain something that's important to me, he doesn't understand.
Right.
And if he doesn't understand it and it doesn't make sense, there's no point to it. So even if it's
Right.
important to me, if it doesn't make sense to him.
Now, I don't mean it has to make sense. There are a lot of things that Lisa and I talk about, and I don't have a clue as to what she means. I do not understand her perspective. Okay? What you got? Yeah, go ahead. You got it. I genuinely, honestly, with all my intelligence and all the time we've been here, I do not. He's got the keys. I genuinely do not understand where that idea came from. I don't understand what the thought process behind it. Now, that said, can I still acknowledge and appreciate that idea? That's the tough one in a relationship. Any moron, any self-centered whatever can say, oh yeah, I agree with that, I appreciate it, if you understand it, if it makes sense to you. But to acknowledge and appreciate an idea that makes absolutely no sense, that's tough. That's a commitment to the relationship. That's a willingness to go in a new place. And the more stress you're under, the tougher that is. The tougher it is. Because it's unknown, it's unfamiliar. So there's a couple of parts, a couple of things that we're touching on. I want to make sure. So there's having an appreciation for the other person's way of being, and whether it's a want or a need or a way of expressing way of communicating. And then there's being willing or committed to give that, even though it doesn't interest you or make sense to you at all. I don't want to be strung along for 3 hours waiting to find out what my gift is. I would hate it. I don't get it at all. I don't get why she likes that. I just, come on, give it to me now. I want it. Boom. I want what I want. You know? But that's not her. So it's a great benefit to our relationship if I can speak to her the way she would like to be spoken to. What does that do unto others as you would have them do unto you? No! That's a stupid rule. Do unto others as they would have you do to them or do unto them. That makes sense. That's how you relate to people. That's how you communicate. That's how you establish rapport, is you talk to them in their language. You listen in their language to understand them. So Dave needs you to paint a picture that is piece by piece, step by step. He needs you to be a little patient and and let him build up his enthusiasm. Now, we can't control Dave, but if he wanted to crank up this relationship, he would work at building up his enthusiasm. He would know that you're like, when you walk in the room, you're already at 110% commitment. You're there. Does that all make sense so far? Okay, good. So there's appreciating the other person's perspective. There's communicating in their language, and it's not hard to tell. A left-brainer, if you want to communicate it with a left-brainer, step by step, piece by piece.